I realized while making the last video that I kept fiddling with the mic and it makes like a little clicking sound throughout the whole thing. So now I have Matoro's arm here as a mic stand. Originally I wanted to make a video about why I got into reading and writing in the first place. However, while I was on my little nostalgia journey, I found myself running into an old obsession from the past. Something that shares a space with Oblivion, Halo 3 and Deltora Quest. And that thing is Beast Quest. Essentially, this series is, and I say is because it's still going, like seriously, if you go onto the Wikipedia page, it will say there are currently like 146 books released at the moment, and that's not including the special bumper editions, or any of the spin-offs or anything. It's ridiculous. It's been going since like 2007. Anyway, this series is all... The series is about our two protagonists, Tom and Elena, as they journey through this land toward Avantia, and kill/tame beasts. Kind of as simple as that. Typically the way the series worked was that each year Tom and Elena would have to collect 6 artifacts across 6 books. Each monster had an artifact either on them or in them or something along those lines, and by collecting them all, Tom would be strong enough to beat whatever the big bad was at the end of, you know, the year's 6-year, at the end of the 6-book run for each year. In later books, and by later I mean like 2014 and onwards, there's actually 4 books a year instead of 6 for some reason. I guess maybe 6 was just like getting a bit too much to do consistently. There also are a few spin-offs which I mentioned earlier. There's like a modern day one which looks kind of gross, and there's another one which is sci-fi based called Sequest that actually looks kind of cool, I guess. The design of Cephalok here actually looks like it's kind of straight out of Terraria with like the tentacles and the weird biomechanical parts. Like, I don't know, I don't know if that's just me or not. I actually love it, to be honest. What I will say is that these books were like a revolutionary thing for me in 2009. These books straight up dealt with some more mature themes. I say that really, I mean at least compared to what else was going around at the time, like Zack Power, which was... I had a superiority complex over the Zack Power kids. For instance, people in this series actually die, which blew me away. It really blew 7-year-old me away. Now, this video is going to be a little bit of a writing video in disguise, because these books actually set some good precedents despite their target demographic. The sign of real quality right there. It's sort of what I want to go into when talking about these little nifty little books here. Anyway, join me as I discuss in more detail than required the first book in this series, Ferno the Fire Dragon. It's about a dragon. So all the books in this series open with the same map of Avantia. What can I say? If something has a map, I'm gonna read it. It's certainly not your Song of Ice and Fire map, but you know, we still have some remarkable locations like the city and the icy plain. So let me start with a little snippet that actually introduces us to the world. It's essentially like a 1-page prologue that's a little introductory thing, sort of like what you'd see at like the start of Elantris or at the start of my own work that I'm making. It's not a shameless plug because it's not finished yet. In this 1-page little prologue, we learn that there's this evil wizard called Malvel, and what he's done is grabbed like these 6 beasts that are supposed to be protecting this land, and he's turned them evil by putting some kind of weird enchantment artifact on them. We also learn that there is this prophecy, shocker, that says that some kid is going to rise up, be the hero, tame the beast, take on the beast quest, that sort of thing. You know how it goes. There's also like a nifty little call to action here at the end where it's like, oh, will you join us as we wait and watch? I think it's neat. I think that's cool. Now, each book also has an actual prologue, and this is where I want to start getting into why I thought these books were so amazing and why I still think they're actually pretty damn solid kids books. The main thing is that these prologues do exactly what a prologue actually should do, which is something that can't even be said for some modern adult works. There's a dog barking, and I swear to God if I can hear it when I'm editing this video. So when writing prologues, it's important that they actually do a few things to avoid being completely redundant in your book or series or whatever. One of those things is setting a good tonal promise, and these books do an amazing job at setting a tonal promise in their prologue. What I mean by that is that the prologues effectively convey what the overall mood and the subject matter the rest of the book will have. I'm going to get into more of this later when I actually go through this prologue. This prologue also serves a greater purpose to the main story and isn't completely disjointed. For instance, we actually see Tom be affected by the outcome of this and the events in this prologue which, you know, top tier writing right there. I'm just gonna go over the prologue from this book here, since I think it's the best of all the prologues from the original 6 books. Also, the rest of the prologues have the exact same structure, and actually the rest of the books have the exact same structure. So it would sort of just be a waste of time to go through everything, more so yours than mine. So this prologue opens with the sickest POV misdirect ever. I have no idea if this is like even a positive point or not, but I think it's a kind of cool misdirect for this age bracket. And anyway, I thought it was cool. It subverted my expectations as a kid, so that's it. So we see this knight called Cawdor the Brave, and there's a little picture in there. You know what, I'm just gonna I'm putting one in post, seriously. Anyway, dude's decked in his bronze armor, he's basking in the sunlight, he's pointing his sword towards the top of a mountain, he's with his squire, Edward, and he says that there's something at the summit of this mountain that has to go be stopped. I mean, I guess we can, you know, make a nice, educated guess as to what that thing is. So the two climb this mountain, and then it starts shaking, as if there's like an earthquake going on, so the two assume that something must be approaching, or they're like big footsteps or whatever. Anyway, it turns out the mountain is the dragon. This whole ass mountain they were on, it actually is the dragon. There's a little picture here to represent it, and we see what really is a scale issue. That dragon does not look mountain-sized, and even as a kid, I was actually a little bit disappointing. Oh god, I swear that wasn't a Freudian slip. A little bit disappointed. A bit disappointed. Oh my. We see, now knowing that it's through Edward's eyes and not Cawdor's, Cawdor clinging to the back of this dragon, doing his best to fight the thing. It's not much. Edward tells Cawdor to jump off, to which the knight for some reason declines. Cawdor screams at Edward, telling him, hey, go tell the king of what happened here. Anyway, then the dragon takes off. So Cawdor is being, you know, thrusted through the air by this thing. Now, this would have been a fine ending for this prologue, except the fact that Cawdor dies. So Edward notes the sounds of Cawdor's screams in the air, and then this is followed by the dragon breathing some fire, lighting up the sky, and Edward finding the singed gauntlet of Cawdor just lying on the ground. He then states that his mission had failed, and I don't know, this just... Talking about tonal promises, this sets a good precedent for what the rest of the book's going to be like. I knew as a kid reading this that this wasn't going to be another, you know, crappy Zach Power, Max Power, whatever the hell it was. It's going to actually be something with some more serious subject matter, something a bit more suited to my growing fantasy taste. This also got me like totally invested. I was like, oh my god, the guy died. This is going to be sick. Real shocker that I would like a Song of Ice and Fire, isn't it? But yeah, it's actually this failure in the prologue and Edward's story that he goes through accounts of the king that serves as the inciting incident for Tom's story, actually meaning that the prologue has a real purpose in portraying the rest of the damn story. Since Cawdor failed, Tom's village is the one that gets crispified by the dragon that Cawdor was supposed to stop, sending Tom on his quest and actually eventually making him become the hero. These prologues were always my favorite part of these books, and they were always the part I honestly looked forward to the most when I managed to finally get a new one, because they were kind of hard to find, weirdly enough, that they would actually put each prologue for the next book in the back of the current one you were reading, but I would honestly just wait because I thought that was way cooler. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to go over everything that happens in this book, like Tom beats the dragon. I don't know what else you were really expecting, but I do want to talk about why I found these books so damn addicting as a kid, and it's something that I've only really figured out recently while trying to actually become a writer. Now, like any good aspiring writer, I've seen Brandon Sanderson's lectures. In these, he points out this whole concept of signposting, essentially a tool that writers use to ensure that the protagonists of their various arcs are having their progress presented to the reader. In the case of an adventure, this progress could be on a map. For a romance, it's how much the people might love each other. For character arcs, it's the actions they take that represents their new changing perspectives, and so forth, so forth. While character arcs aren't a thing in these books, I can tell you that right now, every chapter begins with a weirdly placed picture of Tom. Now, this might seem odd until you realize in the second book that this picture is actually tracking Tom's progress. As in, while he's fighting Inferno, he steals a scale from the dude. I think it gives him like fire resist or something. And he puts it on his shield. And then you actually see that scale on his shield in the next book. So by the time you get to the 6th book, his shield is decked out with everything. And genuinely, that form of signposting hooked me completely in. I was like, I have to see how the shield becomes slightly more decorated. Yeah, average epic fantasy fan. What was actually cool though is you would see Tom genuinely use his newfound powers in like creative ways. Like by the time you get to the last book, Epos here, he's actually using everything to finally beat the main bad. It's genuinely satisfying. Each Monster Hunter part that he collects also brings him eventually closer to fighting Malvel. And I mean, yeah, his fight with Malvel gets pushed back for every different goddamn series, at least as far as I read up to, which was like the first 5 or so. But it still got me hella hyped for every sixth book every year. So you know what, it did its job. Like props to you, group of writers that were calling themselves Adam Blade. I also just want to talk about the fact that the monster designs are absolutely amazing. I only have the first 6 here. I have some others like in storage, but like I'm gonna flash some images on the screen so you can see how cool some of the monster designs genuinely get. Like real shocker I became a Monster Hunter fan when this was the kind of shit that I was subjected to constantly as a child. I remember there being like a goddamn ghost centaur. Like I'm sure I'm gonna flash it on the screen now, but it's like a vague memory in my mind. And there was like a minotaur too. It looked like something out of the nether. At the back of each of these books, they would give you like collector's cards that you could cut out. And they're all gone because, you know, I cut them out. Except I realized that these also had bookmarks at the back that you cut out. And I only ever cut one out. And there's still some like fresh bookmarks back here. So oh man. Well, I like missed the whole line. I just damaged the hell out of that book. I got my bookmark though. You can't tell me this isn't a cool bookmark. I'm genuinely using this from now on. Before I mentioned that all of the books essentially had the exact same structure, and what I really mean by that is every book would essentially be Tom and Elena make it to this new land where the beast is. They encounter the beast. It kicks their ass. They then have to learn something new about how to beat it. And then they beat it. It's, you know what, it's essentially the hero's journey, and it genuinely works. It became very predictable, even when I was a stupid child. By like the 5th series, I was like, yeah, okay, I know how this is gonna go down now. I don't ever remember them really subverting them, but one thing that did subvert expectations was the damn special bumper editions they made. These slapped. I don't have any on hand. I think I only ever had like 1, because they were like sacred holy relics. Like, I remember coveting these things so badly. I had one which was about like a big bug queen, but there was one that was like 2 dragons. I think that was the first one. These slapped, and these genuinely told more elaborate, intricate stories instead of what you found in the normal editions. And they were just way better books. They felt like they had gone up an age bracket and had maybe started to deal with some more complicated subject matter. There was one where Tom's real father actually comes into play, and there's genuinely some dynamic between Tom and his dad, since, you know, the dad's been like absent his whole life. Each one essentially served to round out that year's series, so overall there would have been about 5 I was aware of. Only if I had 1, because as I said, they were like the holy grail. Anyways, that's pretty much where the epic fantasy addiction started.